Napoleon Bonaparte was a French military and political leader who rose to prominence during the French Revolution and led several successful campaigns during the French Revolutionary Wars. He was born on August 15, 1769, Ajaccio, France. Throughout the course of history, from time to time a brilliant mind has risen to subdue the will of people everywhere according to their interest and conquer the world. All of them, including Alexander the Great and Saladin, used tactics, technology, and negotiation skills beyond comprehension for their societies and respective periods of time. 3 years ago, Dr. Dubois requested and received permission to examine the skull of Napoleon Bonaparte in order to discover any possible medical problem that would help us to better understand his thinking and behavior. He looked for abnormalities in the glands when he saw a small incision in the bone. What he found challenged the scientific explanation to this day. The possible ramifications of this discovery are too great to understand, said Dr. André Dubois, who made the astonishing revelation in a French medical journal. So far, it appears that those who have been victims of extraterrestrial abductions are ordinary people who play no part in world events. We now have compelling evidence that aliens have acted in the past to influence human history, and they can continue to do so. Dr. Dubois made the surprising discovery by studying the exhumed skeleton of Napoleon, under a $140,000 work budget of the French government. I was hoping to determine if he suffered from a pituitary disorder that would contribute to his small stature, he said. The object was a kind of super-advanced microchip. When I examined the inside of the skull, my hand brushed through a small protuberance. Then he looked at the area under the magnifying glass and was surprised to find that the object was a kind of microchip. From the point of bone growth around the chip, the expert believes that it was implanted when Bonaparte was young. Napoleon disappeared from view for a period of several days in July 1794, when he was 25. He later stated that he had been imprisoned during the Thermidorian coup, but there are no records of the arrest. The kidnapping occurred. From that moment, Napoleon's ascent was meteoric. The following year, he had been put in charge of the French army in Italy. In 1804, after a series of surprising victories, the diminutive General Size was crowned Emperor of France, and his empire soon expanded to include what is now Germany and Austria, as well as Switzerland, Italy, and Denmark. The researchers could only guess the nature and origin of the object, because it is much smaller than any human finger and has no electrical components or wiring. Napoleon's skull grew around the strange object, so one thing the researchers were able to conclude is that it was probably inserted in his head during his youthful years. We assumed it was during their stay in Egypt. France's most powerful leader never spoke to anyone about this and never found a written history of him, so the researchers began digging records of his travels, hoping to find places and circumstances where he might have had a meeting with extraterrestrial representatives. First, there was a local uprising in 1794, when a 25-year-old Napoleon disappeared for several days and told everyone upon return that he was in prison. The microchip, if that's what it really is, could have been installed first and later updated or repaired, or your body might have just been subject to compatibility testing at first. Most cases of extraterrestrial abduction are not unique, which means that the subject is usually abducted and studied not only once, but many times, as wildlife experts do by placing tracking and recording devices on animals for investigation. It is known that UFOs appear in conflict zones, and some believe that he was chosen during the rebellion of the time, by extraterrestrial forces, after this strange disappearance caused by a possible abduction where he was implanted the microchip and obtained mental improvements. Napoleon, his birth name, his parents were Corsican Italians, continued to lead large armies, becoming Emperor of France and having Europe to his feet in just a few years. People who have met him face to face said that his presence was so powerful they felt that something would prevent them from hurting him in any way, even if there was no one else present in the room. Some described it as an invisible aura or armor, but many now believe that these feelings were caused by the energy generated by the microchip. Napoleon used military strategies, more than 100 years ahead of his time, said Dr. Dubois. Maybe the implant somehow improved their skills. The implant could also explain Napoleon's famous habit of putting his hand on his heart, he added. It is possible that the device would affect the electrical signals of your brain to your heart. At the time of his defeat before the English at Waterloo in 1815, Napoleon had altered the face of Europe. What the history of the West would have been if the extraterrestrials had not intervened, we can only imagine, observed Dr. Dubois. Therefore we cannot know whether it was acted to help mankind or do us harm. About Dr. André Dubois. Dubois is a professor of medicine and head of the Laboratory for Gastrointestinal and Liver Products, assistant director of the Division of Digestive Diseases at UZAS. In 1963, Dubois graduated magna cum laude from the University of Brussels School of Medicine, UBMS. He later obtained his doctorate in physiology and surgery at UBMS, again with all honors. Dubois completed his residency in the Department of Surgery, both for the University Hospital Saint-Pierre, Brussels, Belgium and the Military Hospital of Brussels, Belgium. He also has fellowships at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York, Peter W. Brigham Hospital and Harvard Medical School in Boston. Dubois has been a member of the Digestive Disease Centers of the Core Section of the National Institutes of Diabetes, Digestive and Kidney Diseases. He is also a member of the American Federation of Clinical Research and the American Physiological Society. In addition, he has served as an associate editor of the journal Prostaglandins. Remember what he was looking for in the research. He would know if the hypophysis could be related to his studies and what he was looking for. I was hoping to determine if he suffered from a pituitary disorder that contributed to his small stature. The hypophysis may be the most important endocrine gland. It regulates most of the organism's biological processes. It is the center around which much of the metabolism spins, although it is only a small organ weighing just over half a gram. Here lies the enormous importance of the pituitary. Regulates the functioning of the most important endocrine glands. A malfunction of the pituitary gland leads to a severe and total imbalance of the entire endocrine system. In a special way, ACTH stimulates the functioning of the adrenal capsules, favors trophism, growth, the normal activity of the adrenal capsules, and causes the formation and release of a part of their hormones. If this happens in the child, there will be the so-called pituitary dwarfism. It seems that André Dubois, that he has prestige, works hard, and his specialty and knowledge are related to what is said he was looking initially. It's something. Recently a paralyzed man has regained the ability to move his arm and hand, thanks to breakthrough technology that harnesses the power of thought. A cycling accident left Bill Kochevar unable to move from the shoulders down for 8 years. But the 56-year-old is now able to feed himself in his wheelchair, using a microchip in his brain that reads his thoughts and translates them into instructions to his muscles. In one test, the United States scientists revealed last night, he was able to scoop forkfuls of mashed potato from a bowl. Despite advances in computing, today's computers remain far less efficient than the 3-pound hunk of matter in our skulls. But a new microchip modeled on the human brain is much faster and more efficient than a typical computer, researchers report. The microchip, called Neurogrid, could open up windows into understanding the human brain and developing new forms of computing patterned after brain circuits. Researchers are now investigating how these chips could be used to control prosthetic limbs. Would you ever chip yourself? The idea of human microchipping, once confined to the realms of science fiction and conspiracy theory, has fascinated people for ages, but it always seemed like something for the distant future. Yet patents for human implants have been around for years, and the discussion around chipping the human race has been accelerating recently. Remember when credit and debit cards went from smooth plastic to microchipped? That could be you in a few years, as multiple corporations are pushing to microchip the human race. In fact, microchip implants in humans are already on the market, and an American company called Applied Digital Solutions, ADS, has developed one approximately the size of a grain of rice, which has already been approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration for distribution and implementation. Elon Musk has now weighed in on the debate, referring to microchips as a neural lace, and arguing that they will be the thing that really matters for humanity to achieve symbiosis with machines. Musk has expressed his concern that artificial intelligence might one day take over humanity and possibly treat us like a second-class species. He believes the only way to prevent this type of future is this neural lace. The neural lace would be a type of brain implant that would grow into the brain and allow neurons to be programmed, strengthened, and even enhanced, essentially augmenting human intelligence. In 1804, after a string of startling victories, the pint-sized general crowned himself Emperor of France, and his empire soon expanded to include what is now Germany and Austria, as well as Switzerland, Italy, and Denmark. Napoleon used military strategies more than 100 years ahead of his time, said Dr. Dubois. Perhaps the implant somehow enhanced his abilities, but who implanted the microchip on Napoleon's brain? It was aliens from another world. Did humans from the far future went back to the past and changed the course of history? The implant could also explain Napoleon's famous habit of holding his hand over his heart, he added. It's possible that the device affected the electrical signals from his brain to his heart. By the time of his defeat by the British at Waterloo in 1815, Napoleon had altered the face of Europe. What Western history would have been like had the aliens not intervened, we can only guess, observed Dr. Dubois. Thus we cannot know whether they acted to help mankind or harm us.